Okay, so good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Technology and Libraries Lightning Session. My name is Ellen Breen, and I'm the Associate Director for Research and Teaching at DCU Library, and I'm delighted to be chairing this session today. We'll have 4 10-minute presentations in this session, and we'll take questions for all presenters after all 4 have been delivered. So first of all, I'd like to introduce all our presenters today. Our first presentation, Enhancing User Engagement and Experiences through the Development of UCD Library's Geospatial Services, will be delivered by Julia Barrett and Jane Nolan. Julia is Head of Research Services at UCD Library, and Jane is their Maps and GIS librarian. The second presentation, Developing MARC XML Guidelines for the Digital Repository of Ireland, will be delivered by Claire Lanigan. Claire is the Education and Outreach Manager for the Digital Repository of Ireland. And our third presentation, Book Timeline, IIF Viewer, will be delivered by Cillian Joy. And Cillian is a digital library developer at the University Library here in Galway. And then last but not least, our final presentation, Nuntastic, Transcribing Nanonagel's Letters Using Collaborative Transcription Services, will be delivered by Audrey Drohan. And Audrey is the Senior Library Assistant for Digital Initiatives at UCD Library. So I'm going to hand over now to Jane and Julia.
Don't start the clock, please, until I'm here. So I'm Jane, and I'm going to start by outlining our early initiatives in GIS services. So what does GIS mean? Well, GIS stands for Geographical Information Systems, and just as we use a word processor to write documents and deal with words on a computer, we can use a GIS application to deal with spatial information on a computer. So this means that we can use GIS software to create maps which visualize data. And GIS can be used in almost every discipline to visualize and analyze data. So any data, which includes spatial or location information, can be shown on a map and analyzed. And some of these are visible, so they exist in the landscape, like blue flag beaches or trees or sites of traffic accidents, but others are not visible. They're things like constituency boundaries or folklore traditions or air pollution. So what you can do with GIS? Well, as well as being more eye-catching, a map is easier to understand than pages of data in a spreadsheet. So what you can do is that one of its great benefits is that it gets a message across very quickly and easily. And here you can see an example of a spreadsheet. It's actually about types of soil in Wicklow. And there it is translated into a map. And you can see that obviously it's easier to see where the soils are when you see it on a map rather than a spreadsheet. And this is another example of a spreadsheet. It's about Tanzanian water points. And you're trying to find out where are those Tanzanian water points that need to be repaired. And there they are shown on the map. Obviously much easier to read than in the spreadsheet. So GIS reveals deeper insights into data, such as patterns, relationships, and situations. So going back to a few years, following restructuring in UCD Library in 2012, several new units were formed, and the Research Services unit was one of these. And within this unit, a new role of Maps and GIS librarian was created, c'est moi. And what we wanted to do when we started off was to run a survey to find out about existing issues and problems in relation to accessing GIS in UCD and to gather ideas for possible future directions regarding service development. And what we found was that a lack of awareness of how GIS can enhance research, difficulties discovering and accessing relevant GIS datasets, lack of skills around GIS and lack of availability of assistance. And so from this survey, we created a few outcomes. Moving on. One of these outcomes was to start running UCD Library GIS workshops. So within the first year, I attended several GIS courses, both in UCD and external commercial courses, and before starting to run courses myself, teaching it. And that was a bit of a learning curve. But now these research GIS workshops are part of the suite of workshops that we run for UCD staff. The other key outcome was to create a UCD GIS LibGuide, and creating the LibGuide really helped me get to grips with the subject. And it includes instructions on using ArcGIS, which is a software package, and lists data sets and spatial data resources for Ireland. So up to April 2017, our GIS guide had been accessed by 154 different countries, reaching a global community via almost 28,000 views. So my proud boast is that out of 84 UCD LibGuides, it's the third most popular. The other thing that we started to do was to run GIS clinics. We started these in January 2016, and we employed a PhD student who assisted these. He has a lot of practical experience using GIS, so his knowledge and advice have been invaluable. And 83 individuals have availed of the clinic since we started, some of them coming more than once. These over here on the right list some of the types of inquiries we dealt with this semester alone. I don't have time to read them all out. Catch the website afterwards. The other thing that we created was the UCD Library Impact case study, and we created that about this time last year to show the benefits and impact that these new GIS library services have had in their first few years. And in it we provided statistics about the use of the GIS LibGuide, numbers attending the free GIS clinics, and the numbers of researchers and staff availing of the hands-on workshops. We included examples of GIS queries and testimonials from some UCD staff and students and who had benefit from using the services. And this is where I hand over to Julia.
Thank you very much, Jane. So this is one such testimonial, and it really highlights the value of the GIS clinics in helping this particular researcher to create maps and visualize his research using tools that he says are rarely used in his discipline. He's used these maps subsequently in conference presentations, in funding applications, and overall the use of GIS tools has helped him to make his research more accessible to scholars outside of his field. So in developing these services and getting researchers on board, it is important that we link the services to the benefits and that the researchers will gain from using these tools, because very often with something like GIS, they don't really think that it would necessarily apply to them. Another initiative that we are involved in is in partnership with the School of Geography, where we are organising a Mapping UCD Research exhibition. So what we're doing here is inviting researchers to contribute a map with those selected, showcasing the diverse ways in which UCD researchers and staff have used maps to enhance and disseminate their research in an innovative way. This initiative aligns with the UCD overall strategic initiatives and also, strategic objectives, and also our own research office's annual impact case study competition. And really what we want to do is to demonstrate the power of a map to make a visual impact and to tell a story. To encourage researchers to submit a map, we've secured Ordnance Survey sponsorship for prizes, and the competition will be open to all disciplines, not just geography and disciplines in the social sciences. And hopefully then this will help to build a community of practice on campus. So moving to some of the challenges, skills challenges. So for users, we have to decide, are we actually going to train a user in how to use a particular piece of GIS software? Or are we going to do the work for them? And a number of different criteria will help to inform that decision, such as their level of knowledge, the complexity of the tool and the query, whether they will need to use these tools at a future time in the course of their research, etc. For library staff, this can be a challenging area, as the skills needed are specialist and cannot always be developed through reskilling. So as Jane mentioned, we have a PhD GIS specialist assisting with the GIS queries and in the clinics, and this also helps then to pass on knowledge to Jane and other library staff. So other challenges then are around mainstreaming and moving from a situation where often on campuses GIS expertise and services are centred in a school, with those GIS services then only available to researchers within that school. Another aspect of mainstreaming is integration into a module, and this is happening in a few case areas. Jane is involved in that. And then at a wider level from next year, there will be at least one generally available GIS module available across the campus. And again, there will be input from the library into those. The final challenge here is around that of appropriate consultation space with PCs loaded with the specialist software available in a visible place in the library and staff on hand to assist. So we hopefully will be moving to that in the next few years. So finishing with opportunities, the government's National Mapping Agreement will result in the free availability of mapping from the Ordnance Survey to the public sector, including third-level institutions. The Ordnance Survey is still working out the delivery model, but once that is done, then we will be able to develop services in conjunction with our client services colleagues, from basic delivery of PDF mapping such as these, to more complex GIS-related geospatial services, utilizing the Ordnance Survey's vector data with powerful GIS software such as ArcGIS. So for my last slide, the National Mapping Agreement will provide us with a way of introducing and developing geospatial services across the campus. So it's a really amazing opportunity. So GIS really is a very powerful research tool and does provide us with opportunities for enhancing user engagement through the development of these innovative and relevant services. So thank you very much.